seen that this one is a one to stay. So where people can say things come and go in the anxiety world, we all know it. Psychologists know it, psychiatrists know it. Things do come and go. Things are like the bands on a, the taper bands on the sea. I mean, almost like the ocean's mist. It comes and goes. OCD generally comes and goes. It morphs from the other forms. This thing doesn't come and go because it's a main form of anxiety. If you think about hyperawareness anxiety, hyperawareness is a key term in anxiety. People think about, let's say, people become aware of stuff. And with this one, the awareness is the problem. So if you can't get past the awareness, you have no, you, if you can't get past the awareness, then you're stuck in anxiety land, right? Now with this one, you are trapped in anxiety land because the awareness becomes the problem solely, right? So that's the main problem with this type of anxiety disorder, and this the main problem why this thing can't really be overcome. Well, I don't think it can completely be overcome because your whole notion of awareness gets hijacked by this thing. I guess this is what my videos have been all the time. It's been an awareness campaign that I want to tell people that there's this weird form of anxiety that some people are suffering from, and it's causing our lives. I mean, I'm not saying that's the only reason for failure. Of course, like with everything else, there's a lot of reasons for failure that people might subdue to. I don't think, say, somebody who's gotten a rough past can say just because of their rough past, his or her rough past, that they have a difficult time living and coping. I think it's disingenuous. As with anxiety, I think it's disingenuous to blame something solely 100% for the reason that you're failing. But I think there's contributing factors. And I think just as with anxiety or just as with abuse or anything else in life, the contributing factor in anxiety could be exponentially higher than anything else. I mean, that you think in factoring in, because anxiety, you can't possibly actually break clean from this condition. And this is one of the major, double-edged notions about this condition that you can ever see in the world. Now, the hard thing about anxiety is a personal struggle in the personal business. And no matter how much you talk about it, it's your anxiety is unique to you. It's like dreams. And I think that's one of the major stresses that I have about anxiety, is that essentially the reasons for your anxiety is going to be different than the reasons for another person's anxiety. Now, hyper-awareness anxiety is one such demon. It's really one of the demons, if you think about the demonic world. Anxiety has always been explained as a demonic feature in the universe, in the minds of people, in the minds of the great men. These people suffered from the demons. I mean, demon in the Roman and the Latin, cosmogony is actually, if you think about thoughts, right? The deimos are bad thoughts. That's how the term demon comes from. It comes from thoughts. Now, the anxiety is a thought that is demonic, because it is essentially, it's crazing people who are suffering from that. And it's breaking lives. We see people who are corporate bosses who's getting submerged by anxiety. It's very unlike depression. People oftentimes confuse the two. Anxiety and depression are kind of akin. And although there's the mind that would give rise to both, anxiety and depression isn't really the same bark of the same tree. There are two different things. I would say between the two, and I've had both, I would say between anxiety and depression, what makes anxiety to me so much worse than depression in general, no matter how bad depression gets, depression can and will improve if there are certain things you're willing to do as a depressed individual. It's been shown that if somebody with depression, even very bad forms, I mean, depression is very well understood by the mental health as well at this point. And there's a lot that somebody can do, let's say, to treat depression, because the factors of what causes depression are so vast that it's much easier to control these factors. Say, somebody who just gets out of bed, right, can feel so much better just by getting out of bed. And if you look at how low you can feel as a depressed person, feeling low is pretty much generic. I mean, there's healthy people who can feel low, and there's things that they can do to make them feel higher. Anxiety is very, very different. Where a healthy person would know how to feel low in his bad or her bad day, somebody with, let's say, certain forms of anxiety cannot relate at all to a healthy person. Say, this type of anxiety is like hypervigilant anxiety or hyperawareness cannot relate at any stretch of the imagination to a normal person, because a normal person would never be aware of their blinking or their breathing. So there's almost no way, but the normal person would, or a general person, neurotypical, would understand how it is. If you say, I felt low yesterday, he or she will know how it feels. So there's a lot of relation, and that means that there's a lot of field that you have that you can play with in terms of depression. I'm not saying it's not as bad, it certainly is. But there are people with depression who have chronic depression who can actually still exist and still do. The problem with depression, I feel, is the willingness to do something, right? Usually the willingness, which can be overcome with enough study and with enough learning. It's just that the person with depression don't have the energy to do that. So the problem with depression is usually energy specific, to do with the person's energy solely. Whereas what makes anxiety so debilitating is that the person has an excess of energy, but the energy is extremely negative. So where the depressed person don't have the energy and can certainly are kind of brain dead in that sense. The person with anxiety is completely the opposite. Somebody with anxiety has the energy, but they can't focus. It's like their mind is completely, it's like running away from them. And this is what makes anxiety so extremely, just so cutthroat, is that your mind is on a race to get somewhere, but you can't. It's like you're being shackled the whole bloody time. And no matter how fast you're trying to run, it's like you're running through, you're trying to run away from quicksand. You're just sinking down, 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 down. That's kind of how it feels with anxiety. And this is what I really hate about it, because in that moment you feel like you're going down quicksand, you're going down quick, and you just can't focus, you can't do anything, and you're literally going down a mental quicksand. Okay, well, I think I said enough about this condition, and I just wanted to raise awareness, say what it is to suffer from this condition. At least almost half my life I've now suffered from this condition. I can tell you, it's taking up such a chunk out of my quality of life. I couldn't join the military. I struggled throughout my life with this thing, and I don't think it will ever leave me, to be honest. I think the day that I die, this thing will leave me. But that's going to be it. And this is the demon, one of the demons I sit with is this anxiety disorder. Just wanted to share with you guys and say, if you're suffering from anxiety, I think about you. You're on my prayers every night, and I guess we just have to face the dark side of the soul, hope for the best. It's the best we can do if you're religious. I'm not very religious, but if you are religious, then pray. If you're not religious, then meditate, do the best you can, be a good person. I can't really say anything more than that. I mean, the altruistic motive has a lot to play in terms of people. I do think it's one thing that has envisioned me is like the epitome to me of altruism and of basically of the general consensus of doing good, of human, the idea of humanism and of philanthropy has ramified itself in my suffering and my mental difficulty in general, because I've realized that the moment that I've suffered mentally, and I've always suffered mentally, but the moment I start suffering mentally, I realize what pain means. And it propels me to reach out more. It propels me to go and reach out to people with real pain, different forms of pain, because I really understand what it is to really sit with not only physical pain, but also mental pain in various facets, depression, anxiety, physical and mental remnants of difficulties that I know how to suffer from. So I guess you need to really experience pain to understand it well. It's one of those things in life where you can wear a shirt and say you've been there. And if you haven't, you won't really get it. You gotta experience it before you really have sort of empathy for it. And I think I've reached that point in my life where it's like you're getting to a stable point where, yeah, I think I've said enough now.